DoomBreaker. Such a try-hard name.
It's it's okay. Hi guys, welcome to another off the shelf. We're back with I don't know if I'd call this a power leveling fantasy because it doesn't really seem like he's getting anything fantastical that benefits him. Um, but we'll call it a power leveling fantasy because I think that's the genre or power scaling fantasy. That's the genre that this would be like listed under. Um, so let's call it that. So we read volume 1 of Doombreaker called Doombreaker Blue Deep from the Webtoon Unscrolled production. So basically it's just Webtoons, I think it's Webtoon's own publishing company. And they call it Unscrolled because the whole point of Webtoons is that they're in a scrolling format. So they've adapted it to fit in the book page instead of being in a scrolling format. Which a fair amount actually goes into that, I have to say, and I do appreciate when it is done well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, though I'm not gonna lie, I would absolutely love to see some of these webtoons like compiled into like old like Chinese style scrolls.
Oh, yeah, that would be so cool. But that would be like a labor of love. That's not the sort of thing you would buy. That's the sort of thing you would make by hand. I cannot imagine how that would be. So, how do you feel about well, I guess so the plot of Doombreaker, right? Like the basic plot without too many spoilers, is that our main character Zephyr ends up being the last person fighting in like this world where all other humanity is dead and it's been abandoned by the gods. And so he has one last stand against the demon lord. And he dies. But then he's met by this god in the afterlife who's like, the rest of your race was really boring to watch, but you weren't. So we'll just like reincarnate you again because you were amusing. And he's not super happy about that because obviously the humans didn't know that they were just acting as entertainment for the gods. Um but yeah, so it's really funny because she shows up, the woman he's talking to like shows up looking like like a four-winged angelic goddess or whatever, but she's basically torturing him, you know like this is torture. She's just like, what you did, it was good but it wasn't good enough. So here's my offer to you. um we like the demon king wants to fight you one more time, what do you say? And Zephyr's like, okay, I'll fight him again, and they're like, the gods will give you gifts, and then they set him back.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know my thoughts here, I'm kind of with the gods. These are very, very boring people.
Look, humanity is not always interesting, but humanity doesn't need to be interesting. Do you know
I
what I
think
mean?
I think my opinions may diverge on the gods, though. I don't find Zephyr to be that much more interesting than anybody else here. In fact, I think he's the least interesting of the lot.
I mean, he exists, but like, I mean, he's basically just here for revenge. Like, he just wants to beat the shit out of the demon god and get something out of it, like maybe have more people survive, etc. And like to a point, I get it, but like I don't know. The whole here's my thing is that the whole reborn backwards in time after being the last person fighting. Let's say I've read probably 30 of those, right? And this is not one of the more interesting ones. And then the gods are treating this like entertainment. Can I say Omniscient Reader's viewpoint was more interesting in the way it
That's
tackled
kind of
that?
it's kind of where I go. I feel like there's a lot of ideas here that on their own are kind of interesting, but I've seen them done better elsewhere. The
But
only thing
at the same time, I will say Omniscient Reader's viewpoint is older. So Doombreaker isn't that old.
that feels like a point against Doombreaker, though.
Well, I mean,
Like in reverse, that's one thing. If I like go back to Omniscience Reader's viewpoint, I'm like, I've seen this stuff before. Well, this is the first one or one of the first ones to do it.
Yeah.
That's not the case for DoomBreaker. For DoomBreaker here, it's like, oh, Demon Lord.
Yeah, I think
I don't know. I don't know. This one was a bit rough for me. Like there, I like one little bit. Like one bit was kind of funny to me. No, very funny to me. But the rest of it was just like I feel like I'm going through the paces, like seeing sights I've seen before, just in a different order.
so. What was the part you found funny?
The organ harvesting for his unpaid debts. That was fucking hilarious to me.
Oh, yeah. Um, I think reading it and like reading it from his point of view reminded me a little bit of I mean this is a pretty universal experience among players of Baldur's Gate 3, but it's kind of how you play through Act 1 at this point, right? Like you know what you need to do and you just need to do it like as fast as possible, you know? Like move, 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 hit all the main points, do like your initial leveling, go see the merchants you need to see, pick up the companions you need to pick up, and
Maybe
move
that's the
on.
problem then. I feel like I'm watching someone play a video game.
I mean, but he isn't necessarily treating this like, like life per se. I mean, he's already died and been told
No,
that his
but
life was like basically worthless and come back.
while it is life for him, that is true. The way his character is going about it is with the same attitude that like a lot of I'd say kind of isekai I've seen, where the character goes in and they know the game like the back of their hand. They just power through the early levels. That's just not interesting to me at all. It's like when he goes in, he's like, I need to buy and chug down these potions. Like, even when I'm playing a game, that's the kind of shit I do that where I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is removing any of the fantasy from the game and boiling it down to the game, which is just not fun for me. Even playing a game. So watching someone else do it just I don't know. It removes any kind of charm, in my opinion, that the world could have had on its own.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that because that's in a lot of ways that's kind of the point of power leveling fantasy books. And that happens in a lot of power leveling fantasies is that like the initial chunk of chapters are that the character knows what they need to do to get really strong really fast and they know a bunch of hacks, right? Because they're not really going to face any challenges until they're further along in the story, till they're fighting stronger enemies, so long as they do exactly what's needed to level up at a rate higher than anyone around them. Um, and I think
I think
I've read a lot of books like that, and I think it can be done well, and I don't necessarily think that like somebody's enjoying this. Like I'm sure some people do enjoy this, you know, and like it does have a purpose. Like it makes sense, but
I'm sure somebody enjoys this, but I don't know. It just doesn't gel well because like I'm in the camp for a lot of say RPG games. A lot of these stories are based off of RPG mechanics from video games. I love me a good RPG, but I'm in the camp that always finds that by the end of the RPG, I'm less invested than at the beginning because by the end you start even if you don't mean to, you start gamifying it way too much and it just pulls you out of the experience. I don't really want to go to another medium to experience the same problem I have with the gaming medium occasionally. Like when games are trying to emulate this, having stories like other mediums, going to those other mediums, I don't want to grab the part that's like pulls me out of experiencing stories when I do play games. So, I don't know, like this genre just really doesn't sit with me the same way. I think I know like there's a couple of things I've liked a lot from it, but like just generally like some of like even I don't know, just generally I'm not into that hardcore grind story genre. It just doesn't maybe it just doesn't appeal to the same fantasies it probably appeals to people who love that part of gaming and can relate to that part of gaming a lot. I don't love that part of gaming at all. That's like my least favorite part about gaming is becoming broken and so meta headed that it pulls me out of the immersion.
I don't know about you. I'm proud of my 27 armor class paladin with 300 health. um I mean, I kind of get what you mean. I don't have the same issue, and maybe that's just cuz I haven't maybe that's just cuz I haven't played as many games obviously at this point. Like I am playing more games now, but like historically I've played far less games than anyone else on this channel. And different types of games when I did play them. So I don't really have that hang up yet. Like it doesn't to me feel like overly gamifying because I still find joy in like playing through the game and treating it like some sort of thing where I'm just got to collect all the cool stuff, like do a perfect run or whatever, but also like, hey, I've never tried this before. Let me try this thing.
And I think I don't know that you'll find anyone else on the channel that is gonna have the same issues I have, especially because like Realm is not gonna have the same issues I have. Realm and I are very different type of gamers. I am one of those weird gamers that play the games most often for the story, for immersing myself in that world, even if only temporarily. Realm's not the same way. Realm's very much like a I want to get good at this game to relieve some stress or to um like to get because it feels satisfying to get good at
I
this game kind of
remember
game.
Elden Ring when it
Yeah.
first came out.
So someone like Realm might actually relate to the power fantasy of this genre much better than I can. But for me, that it just does not click the same because I like sitting down in these worlds and really learning the intricacies of it and immersing myself as one piece in it instead of having to be the okay, I'm going to learn everything and be the god of this world, which some people play games like that. Some people want to play games to be busted.
And to be fair, DoomBreaker is not the most lore heavy series about the
No.
background. It is very action packed, intensely action packed in this first volume. Like we literally go from action sequence to action sequence pretty much through the entirety of it. And it is not an inconsequentially large book. Like this is actually quite thick and quite large. It's to scale larger than most of my other manhwas. Um and it is thicker. So it is a large book. Like this is a fair amount of content. I would not be surprised. So this volume collects episodes 1 to 10 of the webcomic. Those are some long ass episodes if this is only 10 of them.
I wouldn't be surprised if the series gained a lot more lore as it went on. It feels like it'd be kind of hard not to with the setup, but that's very clearly not the appeal. The appeal of this series is the power leveling fantasy of it. The this potion gives me this specific thing, so I'm going to chug 50 of them
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. It's hacks. It's cheats.
Yeah.
I like that. I think it's for me, I have no issue with I mean, like I get that it's cringy, but I kind of like it when a main character is just like, I know exactly what I need to do to become super powerful. Now, and I know exactly which people I should recruit to my side. But maybe that's because I've read a bunch of them that are like really good that I've enjoyed, right? And I don't dislike this. I will say this is a first time read for me too. I did not read this on Webtoon when it was originally released in 2021. I think. Because in 2021, this is not what I was reading. In 2021, I was in the deep and all consuming spiral of transmigration novels, which persists to this day.
Look, can I just say for all my bitching and moaning about our volume of them, I do prefer the transmigration genre to power leveling.
Because it's not a video game.
Not even just because it's not a video game, but it just feels like the transmigration genre is a lot more willing to get down and dirty with its world. It's more willing to sit down and
Well,
let
they're
the
not
character
action
live in the
series.
world.
Yeah, you
More
have to
often
live
than
in the
not,
world
yeah.
because they're not action series predominantly. All the ones
Yeah,
we've read have been very much like politics and society and like coming of age and growing up.
but I can even see a world where one or two of these are action series and it works better for me than
Mhm.
this does. Because I don't think the problem is that it's an action series. There are action series I love. Are you kidding me? It, it's just how inherently because of the nature of the genre,
As
how for
of,
granted it has
hang
to take
on,
its own
hang
world.
on, hang on. As of inherently of the genre you cut out.
Wonderful.
And
So
hang on, wait a sec. Your video is still trailing behind your voice slightly. Try again?
am I back?
Yes.
So I just feel inherently because of the genre, it has to take its world a little bit more for granted and treat its world a little bit more tongue in cheek. And if the main character from the start of the story just isn't taking its world very seriously, or not that it's not taking its world very seriously, like, obviously DoomBreaker here, the main character is taking his world seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's all these ways to break the rules of this world, why
Aren't more
do
people exploiting them?
not even that, just why do I care about the rules of this world then? What reason is there for me to sit down and really learn this world? It's a world building thing, I think.
I suppose that's fair. I don't know. I think for me the most of the world building came in the appearances of the gods periodically, because we do meet
Mm-hmm.
several of them. And I think that's interesting because the gods are sort of the reason why his original world died, you know, and why he's back with all these superpowers. So it's, I don't know, I think that's quite interesting in my opinion. Um, but at the same time, I feel like I maybe would be bored after another volume or two of them just kind of going from action sequence to action sequence and not really explaining a lot of stuff, right? Like without more personalized interaction. But I've sort of gotten used to the fact that in a lot of power leveling, what happens is it does take a volume or two. I mean, keep in mind, this is only 10 episodes. That's not that much. You know, it does usually take a chunk of episodes to kind of get past that initial sort of burst and push. And it's happened in other series, so I think I'm more lenient and tolerant of like the first couple chapters being maybe not the best it could be because it's not really going to reveal its true colors until a little bit later when I'd be able to tell if it's good or not in my opinion.
I don't know. I just even with these first few chapters, I just don't feel like there, especially as a volume release, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of a hook for me to be like, I want to keep going.
Well, sometimes I wonder um because I feel like genuinely, and this is I don't know if this is the business model, but I'm going to be honest, it Webtoon having their own publication company called Webtoon Unscrolled, right? And publishing stuff like this feels a little bit more like they're publishing it for readers of the series who like it and will buy it rather than they're publishing it and putting it on shelves in the hope that someone will just pick it up and go, I think I'll start reading this, right? Because they advertise on Webtoon. And if you're into certain things on Webtoon, this will be recommended to you. And if you read a story, like there's other ways of advertising, and obviously, Webtoon's main push is for people to come to Webtoon to read the Webtoons there, where they get like a lot of like ad revenue and stuff like that off of the people reading it. So I mean, in some ways, the printed format is more of it's more of a special extra for fans than it is a draw for new people sometimes, I think. At least with things like Webtoon Unscrolled. Like I wouldn't say that of like a bunch of the books that are coming out through Ise or Yen Press, right? Or Seven Seas, because those are publishing houses that have delved into manhwa and are publishing multiple different series and advertising them online, sending them out in PR packages, like making sure that there's a bunch of copies of them available at the bookstores, having them carried in all the major chains, and, you know, branching out into many different things by different authors that came from all different sites and stuff.
Maybe, but I think I have this trouble with even visualizing this because I honestly think being in the full volume is to the series's benefit more than is it if it were just the single chapter serial. Like if I started this because it's brand new, read the single
Yeah.
chapter. Like there's a lot to be said about the what how much a good like hook from like serialized in webtoon. If I'm following everything as it's coming out first week,
Because it's week to week releases. Everything comes out typically once a week or every other week. It's not monthly.
I'm gonna read this over and I'm giving it even less of a chance to hook me in compared to having that full, in this case, 10 episodes to
Yeah,
hook me.
but you gotta think like at least on Webtoon, this is being recommended to people who read similar things, right? And if you read a ton of power leveling, you're probably you're gonna have a more experience with the genre and you're gonna be willing to give it more of a chance, knowing that power leveling tends to be a little slow to pick up in the beginning. I don't know. At least in general, I find like for me, power leveling, I'm a little bit more willing to get a little bit further into a new series just because I know sometimes it takes a while to pick up. Whereas like transmigration novels, if you know that's the sort of thing where I'm just like, you've got like 4 chapters to make me want to continue reading this. You have like 4 chapters to introduce me to the main character and whoever else I need to know. And if it's not good in 4 chapters, I'm not going to continue because you know. So I'm more forgiving to power leveling because I don't know. I think it's a more, what's the word? Like structured, limited, limited in scope genre. There's not as much unique content in power leveling fantasy stories or like dungeon gaming stories as opposed to with like the historical and transmigration and stuff. You can do pretty much anything.
I think that's kind of my issue with the genre, though, is we're not starved for like these high action content across both the manhwa, manga, even Western comics. There's a billion action series out there. Why should I pay attention to this one or give this one more of a chance than others just because I like action series? I'm not starved for them, that's for sure.
That's fair. And you've liked other things from this series better, or not this series, but this you've liked other things better so far out of what we've read. So it makes
Whereas like
sense.
something slower, like a transmigration story, I don't know. Like I can sit there and be like, okay, this is a little slow, but this is inherently in the genre going to be a bit of a slower genre. I should probably give it a little bit more time to branch out here. And I'm willing to give it more time to branch out, especially when we have volume releases for these stories. But it's just like I'm reading this and I'd be pretty hard pressed to continue after one episode, much less the 10 that we read now.
To be fair, I've not like I said, I haven't read this on Webtoon, so I don't know either how this story goes and if it gets better or if it gets worse or anything like that. I have no clue.
Look,
Um,
I will say all the bullshit I want about solo leveling, but solo leveling's hook chapter was really, really good. Its
Solo
first
Leveling's
little
hook
section,
chapter
that
was
first book,
fucking
even
fantastic.
really good. My problems with solo leveling come after that. So solo leveling does do a good job hooking the reader. I don't think this series necessarily does. I had the same opinion of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I think that first like hook section, that first hook episode or first hook arc, really good. I just think for action series especially, a hook in that first like arc even is just invaluable.
Fair, fair. I think I it reminds me of another manhwa I've read that I think I enjoyed more. And I can't remember the name of the other one that I read because it was a couple years ago on like one of the pirating websites. Um, which sucks because like I would have preferred to show you that one, but I can't remember it now. And I didn't think to go try to find it because that would just be sorting through an ungodly amount of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure it would be worth it because it might not be as good as I remembered. But I don't know if I'm gonna have you read any more of this. If I do, I probably won't have a nice, neat volume for you. I don't think I want to continue buying this personally. So if we read any more of this, it'll just be off Webtoon.
I don't know. I gotta say, this
Yeah.
one more so than other power levelings we've done, I have very, very, very little interest in continuing.
Yeah. I certainly have other power leveling series books I want you to read more than I want you to continue this. So we may not get back to it. There's every possibility we just never come back to this. Because there are other power leveling series that I know we're gonna keep reading. Like we've kept reading Solo Leveling. We're gonna finish that at this point. I don't care. If you hate it, we're finishing it. You have no choice. I am not going to give you a choice in that one. And we're gonna, I mean, I've got more Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I want to keep going on that. Me personally, because I really liked it.
Oh, I enjoyed
Um,
Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I'm just kind of waiting for us to get back to that one, to be honest. I just know there was only one volume out when you got it.
I should have two or three more soon. Because one of those things where it started coming out and then a bunch of books are going to come out pretty close together before it
Mhm.
catches up. And yeah. Um, and Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is also done. So the books can just kind of come out like Abandoned Empress all in sort of the same period of time. Um, Tomb Raider King, I don't know if we liked that one.
Oh, I like that one a
Yeah.
lot, actually.
Yeah. So we'll probably come back to Tomb Raider King. I'm gonna make you read at least one more volume of The Beginning After the End, but that's just because each of those volumes is structurally so different and they're all separated into periods of his life.
I seem to remember decent things about that one, but I could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
wrong.
we enjoyed it. It just felt like it moved real fast because it covered a lot of his life in one volume. But I was
Mhm.
like, the next couple volumes slow down significantly because it's sort of every volume just covers a period of his life. So we're definitely gonna continue that one. So I'm not super pushed on
I will
DoomBreaker,
say,
and I have some other stuff I want you to read too.
all the ones you listed there have one big difference to this, that maybe I'm a little bit more charitable to them than this because of that. Those ones, separate from the power leveling genre, those ones are an urban fantasy. I am much more charitable to urban fantasy because it doesn't have to do as much legwork to set up its world compared to a high fantasy setting, which I feel like if I don't have a good
The
grasp on
beginning
how the
after the
world
end is high
feels,
fantasy.
was it? I can't.
Yep. The beginning after the end was high fantasy.
The other ones, though, Omniscient and Solo
Yeah.
Leveling
Omniscient and Solo Leveling are
and
both
Tomb Raider King.
modern. Yeah, and Tomb Raider
Yeah.
King. Those are all three modern. The beginning after the end was, but at the beginning after the end, they spent a lot of book one off in a forest, so it didn't really matter.
Oh, wait, I remember that one. That was all right. That was all right.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a decent chance we don't come back to Doombreaker. It'll depend on what else I have you read and you know, future stuff. But I think it was interesting to read because generally this is indicative of probably a good 60% of content in the genre. In fact, this might be better than 40% of the content in the genre, and it is quite indicative of most power leveling fantasies. Very similar to this. Solo leveling and Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint are kind of outliers, if nothing else. Which I know you don't want to hear, but you know. But with that being said, I think we are done talking about this book pretty much. And we will be back next time with whatever we are planning on reading next. So let us know in the comments if you've read Doombreaker by Blue Deep and if you have any opinions about it, etc. Yeah. Bye.